Welcome back, everyone. We have another BlueJay video on how to survive Victorian London. When we say Victorian London, of course, we're talking about the reign of Queen Victoria, the 19th century through the Industrial Revolution. A very turbulent but innovative time met with lots of problems and death. But if you're lucky enough, you might survive. Let's see how we can do that. Make sure you hit that like button. I appreciate every single one of you. Let's go.
Do you ever watch Downton Abbey and find yourself thinking, I should have been born in the Victorian era? Well, you're stupid. Firstly, because Downton Abbey takes place 11 years after the Victorian era, silly goose, and secondly, because life in Victorian London would be absolutely terrifying for someone accustomed to the luxuries of the 21st century. But let's say you somehow end up in a Freaky Friday situation and switch bodies with a bona fide Victorian.
That would be a good movie. Someone needs to get on that. Like, can you imagine? Yo, that's a great series alone. Like, someone should make something like that. Maybe there is something like that. I know I'm tangenting, but imagine like a movie or a series where you are like the universe like switches places with someone from Victorian England into 2025 and vice versa, and you have like a week that you have to survive in both areas. That'd be great.
Are you going to survive the London streets? Not to worry. With my extensive background studying history, certified by my 90,000 Reddit karma, I'm here to teach you everything you need to know to survive the Victorian era.
Okay.
Alright, so you just finished your Disney Channel style body swap and have officially transported over a century back in time to Victorian London. Gah! What? What is it, James? My body? What's happening? It looks like during the body swap you've received a lethal dose of gamma radiation. Oh, and your hairline is receding. My hair? Oh yeah, actually.
This is definitely an ad. Great placement. Oh.
Internet again, as you're now in Victorian London. The city is booming from the results of the Industrial Revolution. The air is dense, but the stunning Gothic Revival architecture still manages to pierce through all the smog. It's a city of rapid expansion and expensive projects, starkly contrasted by the overflowing slums. But man, taking in all these new sights is really starting to make you thirsty, so you head on over to a well pump for a fresh sip of water. First
Cholera, bro. You can't do that.
mistake. What are you, crazy? You won't even survive a day here. You can't drink the water. Cholera outbreaks are about as common as an office quote in a Tinder bio. The booming population of London, combined with newly introduced indoor plumbing, resulted in overwhelming amounts of raw sewage. This sewage ended up in the Thames River, which happens to be London's main source of drinking water, thus completing the circle of life. During one cholera outbreak, Jon Snow, a supporter of germ theory, looked at all this sewage in their drinking water and had the hot take of, hey, what if we drink water, but without the poop?
There would seem that would be such an obvious statement, but there was not a lot of scientific conversation around microbiology at this time.
And ended the outbreak by ripping off the handle of a contaminated well pump. At the time, the community believed in the miasma theory, basically the idea that diseases were transmitted through foul odors. So government officials still rejected Snow's theory of fecal-oral transmission, stating, "Germs in the water? Don't be ridiculous. It was stinky air." And this wouldn't be the last time a Jon Snow's potential was shattered. So unless you want to die a painful death, I suggest boiling your water, or just stick to hard liquor, where the alcohol would not only kill any germs, but also help drown that regret you're starting to feel for wishing to be in Victorian London, instead of shutting up and playing Wordle like a good little consumer. Alright, now that you're properly shit-faced, you're gonna need to pinpoint your social class so you know who you're allowed to interact with.
Yeah, basically peasant, lower middle, and then aristocrat.
But isn't who I am inside more important than some social class? No! Simply talking to a social class higher than yours is enough to get you arrested here. Luckily, it's rather easy to find out which one you belong to.
The working class, a different way to look at it. The middle class, which I would say that I guess the middle class are like specified, like doctors, architects, and we see this in the same video we did with like, is there a middle class in Rome? It seems like there's constructs here as well. Maybe you own businesses. In the upper class, who are born wealthy. Usually, that's why you're upper class.
For example, are you over the age of 25 and alive? Then you're probably not in the lower class, as male tradesmen and laborers had life expectancies of 25 and 22 respectively.
What? Seriously? That's insane. Why are tradesmen life expectancy so bad? I mean, there's variables of disease and other things probably attached to this. That's crazy.
But let's say you find yourself a member of the respectable upper class. What can you expect from your newly found privileged life? Well, first off, you can kiss the thought of a hard day's work goodbye, because with the fortune your family has built over generations through certainly non-exploitive means, you'll never have to work a day in your life. So instead, you're gonna have to find out how to kill all this free time you got on your hands. Being a person with enough wealth to buy a handful of developing nations, or one GPU, you decide to use your money to give back to the poor people whose blood, sweat, and Fossy Jaws helped you build your riches. So you buy tickets to next Tuesday's Freak Show. Freak shows were essentially the MCU of the Victorian era.
And if you've ever seen, obviously the blockbuster movie, The Greatest Showman, you already know a little bit about this. But yeah, and there's another crazy phenomena that was happening at the turn of the 20th century and in the 19th century were called people zoos, which is very dark.
Loved by people of all ages and social classes, except for pretentious people who prefer more refined entertainment, like seances. Everyone from your average Joe to Queen Victoria herself loved to goggle and laugh at all the different looking people performing. These freak shows showcase people with physical abnormalities, such as dwarfs, conjoined twins, giants, fat people, thin people, hairy people, ethnic people, and whatever else they thought would pique people.
Just looking, jeez.
Curiosity. Gather round, folks, gather round, for I'm about to unveil the wonders of the world. Realities beyond your comprehension. Freaks from distant and foreign lands. Meet the man of hair. The precious Piper Pinky. Oh my gosh, it's small. And behold, Paul. I thought this was a freak show. Oh, trust me, Paul's a freak. However, the reign of freak shows came to an end as reports of mistreatment of the performers came to light, and the public was furious to find out that the people they went to laugh at for being less than human were being treated as less than human.
Yeah, the irony of like, it's the irony, man. It's the crazy irony of people imagining that they are. Oh, that's interesting. That's P.T. Barnum's Greatest Show on Earth right there. I was just talking about it. Yeah, it's the irony that they believe that they are in a place of judgment in one like in one sense of like going to these shows and supporting the whole construct of it. But then on the other side, what? What do you mean? They're getting mistreated? What?
But now that you've reached your limit of being near the working class who aren't actively carrying your dry martini on a silver platter, it's time for you to build your social status with your fellow aristocrats. To do this, you're gonna have to capitalize on some of the trends of the time. No, not child labor, we'll get to that later. I'm talking Egyptomania. Napoleon's campaigns in Egypt brought back trade and artifacts to Europe, eventually igniting a craze for all things Egyptian in the West due to its perceived exotic nature.
Not accurate for the calm down.
This craze peaked during the Victorian era, and Victorians sure had interesting ways of indulging in this trend, such as hosting mummy parties. Not the Brendan Fraser kind, they weren't that based. Specifically, they held mummy unwrapping parties.
That's so weird. There was a time where that was like not weird. I guess like if you look at it like an age of discovery and like you're an archaeology, I guess. But as like a party?
Getting your hands on a mummy was the easy part. You could literally cop one from street vendors in Egypt like a pin from Disney World, but unwrapping them required a trained professional called an unroller. Why exactly they had to hire a professional to do some glorified banana peeling is beyond me, but I can only assume
maybe because if you wanted it to make sure that it doesn't fall apart.
That their training involved a significant amount of fruit by the foot. Essentially, a bunch of people would gather round to watch the unroller unwrap the mummy and perform an autopsy, including cutting into the skull to go, oh my god, look, he's got a brain, that's crazy. Fragments of the pungent mummy wrappings were then passed throughout the audience for their, pleasure, I guess.
A souvenir.
What am I supposed to do with this? While today we recognize hosting an unboxing party for corpses and disgracing a people's history is the most optimal way to speedrun a Twitter hashtag, the Victorians just couldn't help but satisfy their intrigue. And in their defense, they basically came gift wrapped. But if you need any more convincing on how evil this practice was, the most famous unwrapper was a surgeon named Pettigrew. But overall, on how evil this practice was, the most famous unwrapper was a surgeon named
Pettigrew. Obviously, we got Harry Potter.
Pettigrew. But overall, in the upper class, you won't need to worry all that much about staying alive. Except for the arsenic in your walls.
Yeah.
Lead on your dolls, corsets in your
Yeah.
torsos, cyanide.
Jeez. And I mean, that just goes to show, like, a lot of this is just chemistry and not understanding chemistry and how these things affect the body, because they're just so new. And right, they're just so new in terms of consumer products. So it's not like we have all the data yet to understand what is happening. And if we do, maybe it's just ignorance.
In your photos, strychnine in your tablets, explosive bits of plastic, kitchens full of toxins, morphine for your youngins, mercury-coated hats, radiation from your glass, kerosene in hair products, and asbestos in just about everything. Good
How
luck.
are you alive?
But what if you aren't lucky enough to live the life of a Victorian Scrooge McDuck, and instead, you find yourself living la vida pobre in the working class? Hold off on the booze there, buddy. As tempting of a coping mechanism alcohol is, we gotta make sure you even survive childhood first. Let's put you in a humble family of 7 kids, and shit, 4 of your siblings just died. What? Oh yeah, nearly 60% of working class children died before the age of 5.
Yeah, that working class. I mean, that probably has to do mainly with disease, though.
Good for you, champ. You won the coin toss. I need to lie down. So long as it's in a minor chimney, because it's time for you to get to work. I'm 5 years old. And about time you started contributing to the family, you lazy leech. Without child labor laws, working class kids started working as early as 4 years old. Now pick your poison, chimney sweeping or coal mining. Well, I suppose it's just a 9 to 5. 9 to 5? No. Victorian children were expected to work 12 to 18 hours a day.
18? Bruh. I wonder how much stuff. Think about, like, there's the theory. I'm probably just going off on a crazy limb here, but the harder you work, the more your body, like, stops growing. So, like, throughout time, it's always known that a long time ago, 1850, whenever, the average person was much shorter for that time. Wondering if that has anything to do with stunting your growth because of hard labor early.
Gotta beat out that optimism early. Besides, you've only got that small stature for so many years. Companies have to capitalize on your ability to squeeze in the tight spaces while you can. Now, these are still your formative years, so we gotta make sure you choose the child profession that'll cause the least amount of physical and emotional trauma. There were a lot, but let's narrow it down to chimney sweep and coal miner, and weigh some pros and cons. As a coal miner, you can expect some permanent eye damage due to eye strain from the dark environment, respiratory problems from coal dust, permanent spine deformation due to stooping, and of course there was the occasional explosion or cave-in. But on the bright side, you're essentially playing the closest Victorian equivalent to Minecraft. As for chimney sweeps, say goodbye to the skin on your elbows and knees as that's all getting scraped off. You'll experience some irreversible lung damage from all the soot, and there's a high risk of death from falling or getting stuck in the tight chimneys.
God, can you imagine? Just can't imagine. And then knowing that your kids might be in this, wow.
But at least you can die happy knowing that when Mary Poppins comes out in 100 years, Dick Van Dyke will forever cement your profession as much cooler than it actually was. So assuming you survive your childhood profession, it's time for the big boy world. Now, I know the idea of living poor in a Victorian city is probably a terrifying concept, but don't worry, the Victorians actually put in some effort to help the poverty-stricken wastes of oxygen excuse me, less fortunate folk. For example, if you're homeless, you can escape the cold at a penny sit-up, where for the small price of 1 penny, you get to sit on a bench in a shelter for the night. Whoa, now don't get too crazy. You're not allowed to sleep here. What do you think you are, a human? You only paid for the privilege of sitting, and penny sit-ups even had monitors to ensure you didn't fall asleep.
What?
If you're looking to catch some Z's, you're gonna have to cough up an extra penny at a 2-penny hangover. Don't get too excited. Contrary to the name suggests, a 2-penny hangover is not a charity dive bar where you can drink yourself into an ethanol-induced coma. Instead, it was a rope that you literally hung over. Not the most comfortable experience.
What are we? Oh my gracious. Dang.
But at least you'll be the coolest kid on campus with your minimalist hammocking setup. The rope was ideal because it allowed the staff to quickly, dispense with all the poor people in the morning. But hey, maybe it was a good day at the factory and you walked out with 4 pennies in your pocket, you little aristocrat you. Well, you can afford to be a high roller and head on over to a 4-penny coffin. Yep, While it may look like you just got shipped back from the Crimean War, a 4-penny coffin was quite the step up from a rope, to be fair. You got to spend the night in a nice coffin, you had a tarp to keep warm, and you even got assigned your own little serial number, which is undoubtedly the closest you'll ever get to being acknowledged in your life. Speaking of life, you better get used to this one, as people didn't exactly graduate from social classes, so the only 4 walls you'll likely ever get to call home will be a coffin at best, or a coffin at worst. If you can afford it. But
dang, this is just so dark and
on the bright side, if you manage to survive through the era, you'll get to experience many of the following significant discoveries and advancements. America found its second manifest destiny with the discovery of crude oil in 1859. Charles Darwin published his book on the concept of evolution, meaning that in a few centuries we may evolve past thinking crocs are cool. Darwin's half-cousin, Francis Galton, took this research and started modern eugenics, which led to problems. Alexander Graham Bell patents the telephone in 1876, a device that changed the world by allowing people to learn about their car's extended warranty. Germ theory would become accepted by the end of the Victorian era, and nobody would doubt doctors ever again. The 19th century saw many innovations in data visualization for statistics, which are used today for optimizing shiny Pokemon encounter strategies. The Bessemer process gave us bigger buildings for more people. Modern artillery gave us smaller buildings for less people. Radiation was discovered in 1896, leading the cancer treatment in Imagine Dragons. The Navier-Stokes equations were developed to describe the motion of viscous fluids and weed out chemical engineering students. And Carl Benz builds the world's first car while simultaneously killing the concept of peaceful suburban life. And those are just a few of the significant advancements made during the iconic Victorian era. So, Alex, are you excited for your new Victorian life? You want to go home and play Elden Ring? Good boy. The Victorian era. Disgusting and deadly, but inspired Bloodborne. 3 out of 10 stars.
oh my god. It's insane though. Like, it feels like most people just like, have you ever, like, depending where you're at, there's privilege in everyone, right? Depending where you live. I think, but one thing that we all have in common is we have the privilege of living in this decade, this time, because now, if we lived in the future, we can't see the future. Or is there even a future in the future? I don't know. I do know all we can do is look at the past and say that this is the greatest time to be alive. The greatest time to be alive is right now. Just the knowledge that we have that can deter us from things like bad bacteria or chemistry that we shouldn't be ingesting into our body, and or many other ways, about our social laws, our working laws, our consumer laws, all these things that have protected and rose our life expectancy as well as our medicinal upgrades. Like 2025 is where we're at today. Think about 1825, 1875, one of those years. Let's just choose 1875. The vast difference in where the world is today because of technology, because of advancement, because of social uplift is due to just continuing to just move forward. And not imagine, I know there's a lot of nostalgic, like, I wish I could, live in this time frame. You do for a day. For a day. You want a vacation there. You don't want to live in that time. But for fun, down below, tell me what time zone you would like to live in if you had to go back for a day. Where would you go? For me, I'd love to go back to the Roman Republic for one day, just to see. Let's just say 44 BC. It's not really a great year, but it'll be an interesting year for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, though, peace out and bye-bye.